find that. And so be sure and write your story. And that's what Cam and Allison was talking about. And Diane was here, and we had some other writers. Barbara Schultz was here. So it was a great presentation, but just a fabulous day all in all. So just wanted to, and Tim was here. That was really neat. And so, and he had his little dog with him even. So, who loved me because I smell like cats. But anyway, thank you so much. And next month we have Ken Schick. His call sign is Razor, of course. He's an instructor of the Air Force Test Pilot School. He was a Navy test pilot, but he's now instructing at the Air Force Test Pilot School. And he bought Ralph Weiss airplane. So he's here on the field. And he's going to talk about the test pilot school. So I think everybody will enjoy that. And, lots of pictures. Everybody likes that. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Anybody else have community announcements, public comments, and items not on the agenda?
We have someone in the chat room.
Okay.
Under MDN. Did you want to speak now?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Patty Orr, and I'm with Mojave Desert News. I hope everybody's doing okay. I just wanted to let everybody know that this coming Thursday, February 22nd at noon, the Mojave Chamber of Commerce will be holding their Gold Rush Days planning meeting. And the meeting is going to be held, like I said, at noon. And I believe it's going to be held at the Elks Lodge. Let me double check. They're scheduling the Gold Rush Days for Friday, October 4th and Saturday, October 5th. It's going to be the 83rd annual Gold Rush Days parade. They're going to have a car show, an old timers breakfast, a kids corner, music in the park, and Mr. Whiskerino, an honorary mayor contest. They're also going to have a Miss Gold Rush Days contest. And if you have any questions about that, you can contact Ted Hodgkinson. He's the co-chairman, or Kelly Ewell. She's chairman. And you can contact Ted at 661-754-0561, or you can contact Kelly at 661-800-6225, or you can go to the Mojave Chamber website at Mojave Chamber, or you can email them, mojavechamber@gmail.com, or visit mojave.com, because I believe they're going to start putting things on the website to announce it. But it is a planning meeting for Gold Rush Days that's going to be held this coming Thursday at noon. And like I said, I believe there's also a Zoom link that you can attend the meeting on Zoom if you're not able to attend in person. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other community announcements, public comments?
I'd like to ask Mr. Valentine how many times he was Mr. Whiskerino.
At least two. I was just thinking about that. About 50 years ago.
Hold on this thread. What's going on?
Gold Rush Days was quite the deal here. It was street dancing and
Really?
parades, and the park was full, and Mr. Whiskerino, and I grew a very full beard when it was dark.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 3, consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to?
Yeah, I'll motion to approve consent agenda items A and B.
Seconded.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Okay, aye.
Any public comments on the consent agenda? Okay, so we've had a motion and a second, and 5 ayes, no nays. The motion carries. Item 4, action items. We have 2 on the written and the additional item. Is that what we're putting in? So let's, yeah, so first one is resolution approving the amended budget for the fiscal year.
Yeah, good afternoon. We usually do this at mid-year, just to kind of see where we're at with our overall budget. We didn't have to make a lot of adjustments to our current budget. Just kind of some of the highlight, just want to let you know, as of December, our revenue was at 54%. Operating expenses were at 49%. So we're still looking at us on an overall. Just had to shift some items around, such as we are increasing the operating revenue, $115,000. That was some additional access licenses that we didn't anticipate having for the full year. So we've increased revenue and then increased the operating expenses by $80,000, the overall. And that is due to supplies and utilities. We had to increase just due to the cost of everything going up. And then also software and licensing. They're updating the mass notification program and as well as adding an aircraft counting program so we can get proper aircraft counts. So
could you just clarify, is it increasing the overall total budget target, or is it just moving some more into operating and some less in another?
right. So it is the expenses are going up by $80,000, but the revenue is also going up by $115,000. So actually, the $35,000 is actually having us more revenue.
Just allocating it within the existing
budget.
Right.
Yeah. Because the mid-year, we try not to make any huge changes. Just this is kind of to get us through the rest of the year. We'll do a budget workshop in May and kind of go over everything in depth. Anything new coming up.
What was the increase? We're at 55%?
Which increase?
It's the revenue increase was by 115,000 or so?
The 115,000, yeah, the other
What was the
revenue.
percentage? Can you give a
Oh,
percentage?
no, it's the 35,000.
Was there a percentage number in it?
The operating revenue, we were at 54%.
That's what I was.
Yeah, so then we're just increasing it to get us more, a little closer to the 50,000. And on the CIP projects, overall increased at 22,000. And that was just making some changes, such as we had added the building one fire alarm, which the fire department has come in and said we needed to do that in building one. And then the water valves that we had to repair over at the pump house at the beginning of the year, I think it was July and August. And then also the additional expenses that we have for the water line. But to make those differences up, there's items that we took out of the budget and put on hold, such as gate replacement, roof replacements, vehicles, asphalt repair. We'll bring all those back probably when we do our budget workshop. But for right now, put those on hold so we can move forward with our big projects we have.
Where's the additional revenue coming from?
The access licenses we have with Paxton right now,
Okay.
with the additional aircrafts they have stored. Since they're not land leases, they're on access license. Yeah.
When you say asphalt repair that's being done, which?
It was over by the railroad and over by Inyo.
You talking about crossing the tracks there?
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
And so at this point, talking with Lloyd as well, we talked, once the water line is done and all the construction's over there, we'll probably assess for the new year on where we should do any asphalt repairs to do it all at
So
once.
my recollection was the last time Tim, you and I talked about that, there was some question about whether that was the railroad's responsibility. Because I was encouraging us to do it just because
But I think,
but you said that are we not talking about where the roads cross the tracks?
yeah, no, I don't think that's the road we were going down. I think what it was is that originally we were looking at receiving a grant and investing in an infrastructure improvement there at the railroad crossing. But that was the grant that was through Caltrans that fell through, that wasn't awarded. So my understanding is, and if somebody else in here knows better than I do about this, but my understanding is that is our responsibility to do that repair. I wish we could do a better repair than just flattening out the asphalt, like putting in a concrete pad for the crossing. But yeah, that is our responsibility. do those tracks need to stay functioning?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's trains running on it.
Mm-hmm.
it's an asset.
And to give you perspective, Progress Rail has signed an agreement recently with Union Pacific that's increasing their volume. So we definitely want to make sure that those tracks are maintained.
Yeah, I would think you could just put a piece of angle iron on there because it's just the edge that chips, right? And then drive some. I mean, just a thought. It's not that.
So that item specifically included not only an improvement to the crossing at the road, but it's on.
Okay.
Sorry. It was a repair to the rail spur itself, but we would not have access to do it until after the water line is completed. So we deferred it until the end of the water line project, and we'll, as Carrie said, add it back for next fiscal year. So it does include repairs to the rail and a concrete crossing.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
Well, they do make a product because they've done it at the rail crossings in town. It's a preformed slab of something that fits between the tracks and on each edge, which helps the deterioration through there, keeps it smoother. I don't know if that's something to look into. It's probably going to be a one long time fix. It's just a thought.
I don't know if we had that bid by Railworks, who's our inspector or consultant that does the inspections.
Mm-hmm.
I do not know, but I can come back to you if they were bidding a.
Okay, I just know that was always an issue. Being a long-time resident on the Arroyo Crossing, it would
Correct.
chip out.
It was not an asphalt repair. It was a more permanent concrete repair.
They're preformed.
Yeah, I don't. What I'm saying, sorry, John, is that I don't know if they included that or if it was formed in place.
Okay, good enough. I just threw out a thought.
Okay. So let's see. Action item A. So we're looking for a motion to approve the amended budget. Any other comment? Okay.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay. The ayes carry. Item B, acceptance of Skill Composites Swift aircraft for static display.
Mr. President, members of the board, I don't think I really need to tell you guys who Scale Composites is, but they've had a presence here at Mojave since we were basically a general aviation airport. Huge presence here, lots of contributions to aviation and innovation. I mean, 6 aircraft hanging up in the Smithsonian alone, Scale had their fingerprint on. So, but we don't have anything to memorialize all of that work and those contributions that's really at the airport, like at the front entrance of the airport, where we do have some aircraft that has some historic value that demonstrate our innovation here. Scale Composites has offered to donate their M400 Swift aircraft to Mojave to add to the existing Gate Guard Yardian aircraft located at the front of the airport. The aircraft has been prepared for display. However, Director of Facilities Van Way and myself are trying to work on finalizing some of the details, including who's going to maintain the aircraft, who's going to have ownership of the aircraft. Is it just going to be loaned to us, or is it going to be donated to us? And if so, who's going to maintain it? I did have a conversation with the CEO of Scale, Greg Morris, yesterday. And I gave him, and it's attached to your aircraft display agreement for them to put through legal. What we need to do is find out basically the actual cost of setting up like concrete pads for the landing gear and anchors. Floyd thinks that it's for a WAG or a wild gas about $10,000. But what I'm proposing here today is I'd like to see if the board would approve of us agreeing to at least negotiate and talk to Scale, but to move forward with a plan to accept this aircraft for display pending finalizing an agreement and legal review.
Okay. I don't know what the ask is. You got to bring us back up, but I'm concerned. One, is it ours? Is it theirs? Who maintains it? It's fiberglass. I don't even know what it looks like.
Right.
It's fiberglass.
Or it's sitting right on the ramp right now.
Oh, is it?
If you want to see
Okay.
it.
Okay. Good.
Mhm.
Thank you. Is there because it's out in the sun? Does that degrade the life of the?
So,
Okay.
more so than any
Just okay. Well, metals, aluminum. Okay. Those are just things I have. What, is there gonna be cost 10, 20 years from now that's gonna be significant? I'd like to see it out there, especially the scales products, so. But I'd like to know details before I take any action.
Okay.
So, yeah, I guess was the intent to ask for full approval so you don't need to come back to us after negotiations? I think we'd like to, like in general, yeah. But I'm not sure you really need an action item to go ahead with the discussion, but we would like, the ability to see everything.
Yeah, there will be a cost associated.
10,000.
But it's less than, he doesn't need our approval
No.
because of at that
Is
level.
it? I don't know.
It's probably a small enough number, is my point.
The reason why
Probably isn't an answer.
Well, if it isn't, then they have to come back and ask us. But my point is, we could approve this pending that they'll take care of it.
the reason why I bring it up is because according to policy 400, I have it in here. It's section 4.3.07. All static displays of aircraft are subject to approval as determined by district. I just want to see if that's something you guys would be supportive of moving forward. And then when we actually do have the agreement for the
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. In that case.
Yeah.
great. Does that require a motion?
No.
Okay.
No.
Cool.
It's not a commitment. It's, we want to do this. Well,
The board could authorize you and give you a cap on how much you can approve, or the
I'd
board
like
can
to
say
see the
bring it
numbers
back
and
to
have some more
us.
discussion. It won't take much, I don't think, but
Rick, were you involved in, we used to have an airplane mounted where the chest set is? Tuna, right. And I liked the way it was mounted because it was like angled.
Yeah.
And it was a really simple mount. It was just concrete piers that had steel in them. And then you just take the gear off and you just put something in where the landing gear used to be and you just weld the two together. And it, so all you need is 3 concrete pylons and you don't need a pad or anything per se. You just drive them into the ground like
not to make it complicated for you.
well, it's simple, you get a hole digger, a hole digger or whatever rather than for a pad.
It's exponentially harder than setting it on
Yeah.
a pretty small little concrete pole.
Chaining it down.
Sounds like your 10,000 thought was anticipating it.
We put a landing gear in it and locked it so it can't move with some machine parts.
Oh, okay.
With the thought that it would just sit like the other airplane.
Sure. Tuna was, the way tuna was really cool.
Mm-hmm. How many flights on the Swift total?
7.
7. Okay. Disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think we're done with item B. So we're looking forward to adopting it and displaying it. Item C. Scott?
Yes, this is the Cambium matter. Again, last meeting, the board approved rent abatement of $65,000 after going back and rebidding with prevailing wage. It comes in at $67,000. This is, Lynn, this is a 50-50 split. So the total project cost went up $4,000. We're asking the board to approve that additional $2,000 in rent abatement.
I make a motion to approve.
Quick question. How much do we get? I mean, that you're going to abate the rent and that, so that was like in the close to $100,000 that we would get for free labor to make the building better.
So it's $134,000.
Okay.
Yeah, and so we're splitting the cost, and so we are abating because it's an improvement to a building we own.
Okay.
Right, and someone has to make
Right.
that improvement. We're just agreeing to split the cost with the tenant.
So,
And so they're picking up half, we're picking up half.
68,000 or so.
Yeah, 67,000
60, okay.
is what they're asking
Okay.
for.
But they, I assume, intend on being in the building as soon as possible, a couple of months, probably.
Yes, as soon as possible. My understanding is the AES, the engineering firm, did the plans. They had worked with the county, but they didn't stamp the plans.
Well, my point's being, it's
And now they have.
going to start generating abated rent in a few months versus no rent at all. So
No, we already approved the previous
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
This is
Yeah, no, I
$2,000
understand.
more.
Yeah, it's
But
an
you can
incremental.
stop it by saying no, I guess.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
could.
that'd be
I don't
obnoxious.
think-
Well,
No, I'm-
seconded. How
Yeah.
about that? We had something
Yeah.
put out there.
No,
I think we're unanimous before, so I'm not sure
Right.
this is very controversial.
No, it's,
Just oversight that everything's approved and good for
Yes.
Yep, so there's
building
any
codes.
public comment? So we've already had one motion to pass. Second. Okay, we've got a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The ayes carry unanimously.
Thank you.
Now we're on to 5 reports. Or no, I'm sorry, action items. No, we did not. That was where C was. Okay, 5 is reports.
So these are the monthly, we kind of went over some of the operating, the revenue and expenses, but just to highlight, the bank balance did increase 1.4 million. If you recall, in November, it went down because we had paid out the FAA expenses. So we had received our FAA reimbursement. Also, we had received a prepayment on fuel for one of our tenants, and then the Kern County tax deposits for the December property taxes went into our account.
how often do we get those?
They come out and throughout the year, but April and December is when we get the bulk of them.
Okay.
Because it all depends on when the residents pay their property tax.
Yeah.
Fuel sales, 93,000 gallons. AR, American Verde and High Desert Wireless, they're still in communication and trying to make small payments. They've vacated the property, so we're still trying to work with them since they are sending us something and they're not occupying. Mike Carmack has been added over 90 days. We were trying to reach him. He did reach out yesterday and said he's out of the country, and so he'll be sending his payment. I'll come forward and we may move forward with pay or quit.
What area was he involved with? What property? Lease, building?
It's a hangar, right?
Okay. Okay, 971.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then fitness center is 604 members.
Wow.
Question on, we have a training and travel expenses. Did we talk about asking for travel expenses broken out? Separate?
Not yet.
Not
But
yet.
not from me.
Not from you.
Well, I think that's gonna be one of our asked.
Okay.
To have a breakdown.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if we'd made that request yet
Okay.
or not, but
And I could do that during our budget, our workshop. I can bring kind of over the last year what has been
Okay, I think
allocated to
the board's
different.
gonna ask, we haven't really gotten to detail, is a monthly.
Okay. Okay. And that's all I have for this
Okay.
report.
Great. So, Mr. Reed.
Mr. President, members of the board, Taxiway Alpha Rehabilitation Project contract is still with the contractors, and I think that's as of yesterday. Has there been any change today, Floyd?
They found it today, so we should have it afternoon.
Okay, great. Then we can expect to hold a pre-construction meeting soon, and then anticipate the start of construction in late March. Starting off with a 30-day mobilization and then 30 days worth of work. Updates will be provided to our tenants, and including issuance of NOTAMs. The inland port, there has been no updates still. Water main system update. The pre-construction meeting was held on Thursday, February 15th. Start date of this project still on track, or actually, no, it changed to this upcoming Monday, the 26th. Thank you. Project will still last approximately 30 days with minimal impact to general aviation gate access and roads. The only impact to the access to general aviation area is we'll only have one gate lane that will be open, but otherwise that's not. I mean, we're just going from 2 gates to 1.
About traffic going in and out of Belshaw and Inyo, is that get closed off or rerouted or?
There will be a shifting of the traffic, but they under the contractor has to provide a traffic control, somebody to help assist with directing that traffic.
I would imagine they'd have a detour as they work in one area.
Right.
We did that once before on something.
Yeah, there will be three or 4 days approximately that Belshaw will be affected. But at no time will it affect both Belshaw and Inyo. So anytime that Belshaw is closed, we'll redirect traffic to Inyo. And then when we move down to Inyo, then Belshaw will be open.
And you anticipate it to be about 3 or 4 days?
Of closure
I know I'm
time,
gonna
about,
get questions, so.
of closure time on Belshaw, about 3 or 4 days.
So there'll be like a sign out at the post office area to.
There'll be a
point
sign,
to-
it will be, we're going to leave the hall ambulance gate open and that
Okay.
access to the
Okay.
propulsion testing area. So it'll be beyond there, but it'll be closed between there and Roper. Because the work will be taking place between Savovich and the 36 gate, which is the GA area gate.
But people that come up from Belshaw and they expect to do it, they'll have to do a U-turn. And if it's not at the post office area.
We can put a sign out front, but the closure, sorry to clarify, we will put a sign out by the post office at the edge of the property as far out as we can. But the closure will not take effect until we will be leaving the hall ambulance gate open and access that way.
Okay.
We will have a closure map from the contractor before they start.
Okay, thanks.
In regards to the water system hydraulic modeling, Floyd has made tremendous progress with obtaining more information from our tenants. One of our, I don't want to say troublemakers, but one of our holdouts, I did actually speak to him yesterday, but we are making progress in getting this project wrapped up, getting the data to wrap up this project.
You know, I still have a problem with their needs. It looks like if we've modeled, and I know I'm missing something here, it would be modeled for now and future, because that's gonna change.
Right.
So are those future numbers based on current use, or how, I don't, tell me how that works, man.
Okay. Floyd, do you have a better way to explain it?
Am I asking a legitimate question?
No, it's legit. I think that he understands it.
No, it's certainly that we're modeling for future expansion and our future needs, but we need to evaluate first, worst case scenario now, do we have enough capacity? Are we able to keep up with the current demand? And unfortunately, we've never modeled everything together. So when we've had large developments like the Rock Hangars or the Faith Hangar, that's only been looked at that picture and without factoring the entire airport together. So when we're modeling the current worst case scenario. And that's why all of this information on the individual hangars is so imperative.
Okay.
Do you put on VR goggles and like swim through the tubes?
Okay.
That's how they do it, Bob, that's it.
See the valves from inside.
I would like to, but no.
Okay. Thank you, fine.
As far as hangar development update, we're still working with local equity to answer questions. They've approached us about a couple of things that they're unaware of. For example, I directed them to erect a tube last week and a salesperson with them because they don't think they were aware that there are companies that have prefabricated buildings and the cost savings that could be encountered if you actually utilize those resources.
That kind of questions, they've never did hangars before. And you buy a kit, you assemble a hangar, that's what it is. But them not knowing that gives me some
Pause.
yes.
Yeah.
That's very common how hangars are built. So
I can agree with you on that.
Okay.
As far as highlights are concerned, this is the one thing I really wanted to kind of brief you guys on. But Terrigen has graciously offered to pay for setting up displays in the Stu Witt Center for a donated Longies, and I always forget this one, Kathy. What's the other? Very's. Thank you. They actually came up with a proposal. I have a copy of this in the board packet, but I also have a full-scale rendering of what it would look like. But they're proposing to construct 2 pedestals for the aircraft at the very end of the Stu Witt Center by the roll-up door. And underneath it would have space, okay? I asked staff, like, will we use that space for? And originally we were kind of like, maybe storage. I'm like, that seems like a huge waste, especially since Terrigen is paying for this work. I have reached out to Kathy Hansen, who's here today, and said, would it be possible for us to come up with maybe a game plan to possibly put some displays that her museum group has in these areas, maybe setting it up like it's a miniature display area, kind of like kicking off the opportunity one step closer to having a transportation museum, at least getting some displays and appropriately using that space for something that's of value instead of just storage. It sounds like that Kathy and her team are interested in talking about that and seeing if we can't get some displays set up in there. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, ever rule out just hanging them from a couple of cables? Those planes weigh like 300 pounds without an engine.
Oh, okay. Without the engine, it still weighs 700 pounds.
No, it's like
Long easy.
They're roughly 800 pounds. We did weigh them because we evaluated that, and we didn't gain a lot of traction. I don't have.
Is that with or without an engine?
With the engine. They both have engines in them.
Yeah.
As they sit, they're 800 pounds,
Yeah,
which I don't argue is not a lot of weight.
Well, the 300 of that is almost the engine. So,
260.
like I said, there's, yeah, I mean, it's just a couple of thin cables.
So there was a couple of oppositions that we had heard through hanging them.
Yeah.
One of which was when we do when they have the model airplane flying in there, there was concern that they would be damaged with that, or it would obstruct the model airplanes. The concern from staff is that because we have to be good custodians and maintain the aircraft, that the activity that takes place in the event center for basketball games and parties and whatever else, that they may sustain some damage. And it was hard. I could not find a registered engineer that would buy off on the connection to hang the airplane. So we can design all the apparatus for the building, but it would have to be the manufacturer's buy off to attach that to the airplane and suspend it. And there was just a little bit of liability there without having a listed assembly to hang it from. So this proposal came up because that was a compromise to all the other options, because we've talked about a number of things: hanging them, placing them up on the stage, placing them on the ground in the back of the hangar. And we proposed this idea to keep them up off the ground so that they weren't subject to as much damage. I'm not saying that an errant basketball is not going to make its way up there, but it was the compromise between all of those things. So that's how we arrived at it.
So it's basically on the roof of the fitness center.
It's basically that we'd be putting mezzanines in the west end of the hangar, or the event center, and placing them on top of the mezzanine.
Not going to interfere with the stage, nothing like that.
So the opposite
that's
end
basically not used space in my view.
The other end.
It's the opposite end of the stage.
Sure.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that seems like a lot of cost and everything that goes up when you could just hang them. But
And the money
especially
is
if they
being
want-
donated. Terrigen
they
is
want
giving us
people.
$100,000 to do this
yeah,
mezzanine.
I mean, you could put them in, and they could be. You go and lower them with and then clean them, and then raise them back up again.
Yeah, I understand all
Yeah.
Why are they scared of hanging the?
How often do we
Under them.
rent that building out to, I mean, it's a great facility for a decent sized event. And what I'm getting at, having an atmosphere of who we are in there, these type of aircraft and stuff, I think it makes it much more attractive just because you feel like you're in it instead of it just being a shell. I don't particularly care how they mount them, but I'd like to see stuff like that displayed in there. It's a beautiful building.
I agree wholeheartedly. And actually, I think it's interesting because this is all through donation by Terrigen. And they think that doing this proposal right here, I actually like it more than just hanging it from the aircraft from the rafters, because it gives us more space and to utilize for getting us closer to increasing the utilization of that building by having displays. We can, maybe work something out with with Kathy's museum team to maybe staff it once or twice a week, or even on the weekends, which gives pilots something for them to travel and see. So in this case, I understand the aesthetics for hanging the aircraft might be cooler than putting them on pedestals, but this proposal,
this is on a mezzanine,
right?
right? So, I mean, are we giving the public access up there?
No.
Yeah.
You could have storage underneath.
Well, that's what I'm proposing is that we work with the museum to include displays of those areas, so it's not just underutilized space. It's not just storage.
Right. That would be useful too. I mean, we've got sports equipment, we've got special events there where do you put the stuff, you know, if we invested in buying things like, I don't know, don't we have chairs and things like that we put out, where do we put them when we're not having the event?
We have ample storage. There's yeah.
Or what we
Over by the
have
gym or
as of
something.
right now. It's actually on the backs by the bathrooms back there off to the
Gotcha.
left,
Okay.
the left and right.
Yeah.
I mean, that would add utility, but I just like the idea of having them kind of like flying in the room. It's just one opinion.
Just like with the Sony, how they hang them all.
Yeah, which I actually don't like, surprisingly, but because you can't get close to them. I prefer them on the ground, but that's not practical in this building because we're going to be. I mean, you can't play. You know, yeah, pickleball. Yeah, please. As our museum expert,
As we speak, Todd Schultz is dropping off about 8 glass cases at the hangar. And his mom, Barbara, said, if we can do this, she says, I can do 1 case all on Poncho Barnes. And she does have a lot of Poncho memorabilia. But I'm thinking, I have a lot of really nice models that could go in a display case too. And something like that under the long easy and very easy, I think would be really attractive. And if you have an event, it'll give people something to look at. And it goes along with all the photographs that are in the building now, which were photographs that I had in 8x10. I don't know how Lydia up in Tehachapi did it, but she turned them into 4 feet by 8 feet pictures. And it's the real deal. I mean, it's things that happened here in the 40s. Bob Hope brought his USO show here and had Francis Langford. And there's a big picture of him with Francis Langford. And the flight line full of Corsairs and the USO Club. And there's Pappy Boyington. Of course, he's got a drink in his hand, a cigarette in his hand. But, I mean, it's the real thing. And so it sort of takes you back into time. And I'm an old softy. I like that.
what are you proposing? Or
I'd like to put in some glass display cases with some memorabilia and historical artifacts I have an old yearbook from the Marine Corps Air Station here from 1943, I believe it is. And I just like to have those things on display.
yeah, just my opinion. I appreciate that. There might be concerns about compatibility because it's a sporting. You know, they're playing basketball and they're having glass museum cabinets in there. It might not be a compatible use. We would have to solve that, you know, like.
Yeah, maybe some partitions or something.
That was one of the appealing points of doing the mezzanine because we could enclose the larger side and give it a place to display cabinets.
So you go into this small hallway like closet where the cabinets are?
The mezzanine would create a 20-foot by 60-foot room, approximately a little bit smaller than this room to display.
Oh, so it'd be 20 foot deep from the
It's
back
20
wall?
feet from the back wall.
Oh, that's much bigger than I thought. Okay. That's
It's
huge.
still behind beyond the entrance to the restrooms. So it's that back corner that someone had mentioned that's kind of collects junk.
That's compatible with the size of a basketball court and all that?
No, they play
Half-board at the,
They play basketball in the center of the event center when it's not being used.
yeah.
So hanging them above, there was concern that there could be damage
Yeah,
from
yeah.
that. At least this way, they're elevated and kind of secluded. So that was another reason for the proposal, and it was designed around the amount that he had donated to us, that we could achieve this with what was donated.
So they'll sit on their gear, but there won't be public access up it.
Correct.
Oh.
And it is possible to leave the bottom open, so when you're inside the area where the displays are, that you could look up and see the bottom of the aircraft.
It sounds like it may not be the most ideal way if, the point is to feature being able to get up close and personal with a long easy, but it sounds like a good solution to use the building we have, add atmosphere to it, protect the long easy and the cozy, and also provide a space where you can get up close and personal to other museum artifacts. So it sounds like the aircraft are being more used as ambiance rather than the feature pieces, which I think is a nice thing. I think that's a good way to maintain the dual use of the event center as both sporting and aerospace ambiance. So
I'm not a big, again, it was open discussion. If you can't, I'd much rather be able to walk up and touch the airplanes. So for instance, putting them outside under a shade structure with a couple of picnic tables or something, so at the entrance would be nice.
80 knot wind.
Well, the airplane,
Yeah. Right.
they do all the time if their nose is down.
Well, you're gonna have them attached.
That'd be
Yeah,
sandblasted.
exactly.
yeah, now many
But my point is that, you can go up and touch them. They're like gate guards to that
I wouldn't
building.
want them to
And,
touch it. They're sharp,
Well,
possible.
you know what happens.
and
Kids.
there's not a compatibility issue with a sporting center that's
Yeah.
slowly morphing into a museum. It's, it's just like eventually we'll run into a situation where,
So let me ask the board, this is just a report.
yeah,
Do you want to put it on the agenda for a discussion item for the board?
or maybe we have our
So probably
subcommittee.
need to, since they're willing to donate a
Right.
significant amount of funds.
Yeah. Personally, I think that's a good start for the Mojave Museum long easies, spirit easies. That's a good
It'd be
start.
great to have them on display.
Okay.
It'd be nice if they
It can
were.
always change someday. Right now, that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So agenda,
Bob Williams donated the long easy
Mm-hmm.
and,
Yeah.
they answered,
No, this, there's one, Fleischer.
Okay.
that's right.
And that engine could run, or is it toast? 'Cause that's valuable item in that.
Requested that it
Yeah. Okay. What's that?
Flown somewhere else.
sold and run somewhere else.
320 or 235? Yeah.
Just the one.
Okay, so I don't think we need any there's no action item.
You
this other
can't
than-
take action. This is
Yeah.
just a report item.
Got it.
So
Okay.
we will put it on the next agenda
Mm-hmm.
because it sounds like the board wants to have a full discussion on this.
Right.
Or maybe we form a subcommittee that works with the administration to
Yeah.
come up with good solutions. I don't know.
Yeah, you can always appoint an ad hoc committee to do that.
I think we're all excited about
getting
the
them
opportunity,
displayed.
getting them displayed,
Mhm.
and grateful for the donation, et
Yeah,
cetera.
the donation.
So no complaints here.
Have to ask this.
The only thing that they ask is that we're obliged to include a plaque identifying the company as the donors to the facility.
That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, actually Kathy and myself had met with Simon with Terrigen. They had donated the money to the museum to put in the kiosks in the park. So they did that, and then they also they wanted the aircraft on display in the event center, and they had offered the 100,000 to move forward with that, to put them on display in there.
100,000.
It's a lot.
That's
Not a prevailing wages.
Right, yeah,
Yeah.
we first attempted a building
Yeah.
over in Legacy Park. That was
Okay.
we shot real high for another
Yeah.
building in Legacy Park, but that was gonna be 250,000, so they didn't approve that, but with doing the mezzanines, that we could work within our budget, getting an engineer to design it and get them up on display.
And Floyd, this is their concept too, right?
This is our concept.
Oh, it's our concept?
So this is between the district staff and our consulting architect. It was designed around fitting into the budget that Terrigen provided.
So if, unless you want to create an ad hoc committee, we'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting so we can have a
let's do
full
that.
discussion.
You can always.
Yep, sure.
Just a couple, just other quick notes, really quick. Last week we did have our annual FAA inspection with the Spaceport AST division. Sorry, it's for Spaceports. We think we did well. We're supposed to get the results of that, I believe, this week. They operate a little differently than certification for airports. Usually, you know right off the bat how you did, but it went really well. I did have a meeting last week. We had our quarterly FAA Spaceport Director meeting with the AST office. Really nothing crazy to report right now, except for I'm sure those of you who work in the industry or know about the methane debacle, using methane and liquid oxygen. We don't have an appropriate protective distance, which theirs, I think, is about 1,500 feet, isn't it, right now? 2,500. We're hoping that the FAA gives approval for us to lessen that, because if we do have some of our tenants are interested in testing using methane and liquid oxygen, and with 2,500 feet radius, that's very prohibitive. It shuts down an awful lot of stuff, especially it bleeds into the airfield. Doesn't it shut down 826 in addition to 422?
422 and 1330, depending on the location, but mostly those two runways will be shut down anytime there's testing with
Testing or fueling.
fueling. So any hazardous operation with methane.
And then what about where would this, if there was this on the field, where would the storage be? And does that have the same radius requirement?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's only when you're transferring it, loading it, or flying it. Okay.
So there's a flying vehicle that uses methane.
Yep. That's what you get for walking in, Ariel.
Should have stayed with the dog. No, so right now the only operations we have are rocket engine testing operations. We do not have any vehicles that are utilizing it for flight at this time. However, we do have several test sites interested, one of which has not come online. With our QD 2,500 feet, that does put us at a pretty significant PTRD as well, which would affect the roads around the airport as well as our rail spur.
Would you please expand those acronyms?
PTRD is your public transit route distance. Typically, when you calculate your PTRD, it means if you're in a vehicle versus just standing outside, you would be safe in the event of an explosion. That is 60% of your QD. So when we look at PTRDs,
is
quantity distance.
Thank you.
That's if you're standing in the bubble and things go bad, you're in danger. It's your danger zone. So your quantity distance, typically out here for the types of propellants we use, is 1,250 foot QD unless otherwise engineered down. And we do have a process that we look at to reduce those QDs. We only have 2 test sites that we're looking at that process for, but it's 750 feet away from that test site for vehicles to go by. With not only our runways, our roads on the airport, and roads around the airport, but it would also affect the railroad. So it is very important to us to actually have, a scientific analysis and engineer study on what that QD should be for methane, because bringing it into the airport could cause a significant cinch on our operations around here.
Is it not scalable based on the size of a rocket or below?
We have not gotten any guidance on the scalability. So for instance, for the oxidizers and the propellants that we do use, we can scale down to, the smallest amount we can scale it down to is 236 foot quantity distance, or 142 foot PTRD. And we can't do anything smaller than that. They just say, if you're using this, no matter in what quantity, this is the minimum radius that you need to have. With methane, we don't have that scaling yet. And so it was very important during this inspection to ping them and say, hey, we need better numbers for this because it'll shut us down.
And the reason why we don't have those numbers yet is that the FAA utilizes DOD 50 50 dash, sorry, 5065, right? They utilize a Department of Defense guidance, but that guidance never included methane because that was not considered to be a propellant of sorts up until now. And so all of the spaceports right now are struggling with this because that's the propellant du jour, especially if for missions are going to Mars because of the abundance of methane. So without guidance, we have to go with the largest protected distance, which is 2,500 feet, which isn't realistic, especially for all of us that we do have test sites, but not enough land to support that type of testing operation.
So my understanding is in the past there's been, and maybe it's before they had adopted standards, but I know like it might have been Spaceship One, I can't remember which, but there's, because I've done some of this analysis in the past where you use, mining engineering has standards for, equivalent sticks of TNT, and they have radiuses that are safe for, people unprotected versus, et cetera, overblast, for hearing damage, all that kind of stuff for explosions. And it scales with, you take the amount of stuff you have and there's a chemical energy equivalent if it all ignites, and that's X number of sticks of dynamite, and then there's a plot, you just look it up. That's right. Not, I don't know if that's assuming that's the same thing that DOD has, because they probably got it from the mining engineering guys for all I know, but
that does sound like the same.
We end up using that, there's for both hearing and of course, ballistic stuff.
Right.
That's why I was asking about the scalability. If it's, equivalent to one stick of dynamite versus 100, it's presumably there'd be a justification. And I would assume that would be the burden of the
right. So when we look at
to do that calc and then
right. So when we look at those and your net equivalent weights, which is the equivalent weight in TNT pounds of TNT should something go wrong. We have those scaling. We have that chart in 6055.08, which is occupational ionizing radiation risk procedure. That's one of the forms we use. Also parts 420 and 450. The FAA has a weird stipulation specifically to methane, and that's where we're getting that 2,500. But at a half-mile hazard radius, that really does put a crimp in our operation. So we are working with AST, and it's something that we brought up to ensure that we're looking at methane in the same strategic and scalable procedures that we look at the rest of our oxidizers and propellants here. But as of right now, they don't have that information for methane yet.
And that's what they're working on right now, but they're dragging their feet.
Right. So the safe answer is just to pick the most conservative radius to levelize. But at present, there isn't a pressing demand for this answer, is it?
We do have one test site looking to use it, but they probably won't come online for another year.
Yeah. Okay. So the problem may go away, and also
we're hoping, but of course we're at the mercy of the government to.
So we're not funding any engineering studies or anything to solve this for the 10.
Right.
Okay.
Does that customer recognize our challenges with this?
Yes, that we have been fully transparent. We've discussed it with them throughout their precise development plan, and as they've started to build their test site. I'm not sure how far along they are, and I think we're still in surveying and taking core samples right now. So we're pretty early in the stages of building that test site, but we have relayed that to them, especially with the location of their site. So.
I don't know if you have access to the Spaceship 2 tank explosion, but some of those parts were like 200 pounds and they shot like a half a mile or more. I don't know if it's even more than that distance.
I do have all of the incident reports and collection from that in my office.
Okay. I don't know. Was it more than a half a mile, I believe? 2,500 feet?
I did see up to 2,500 feet for some of the parts. It wasn't the 200-pound part. I would have to reread it. It's been a while.
But it's just kind of, I don't know about all this analysis for explosions and everything, but we showed that a tank can go that far.
I think it interesting.
When you take into consideration these radiuses, that's on property?
Correct.
Because obviously that can't affect landholders around us.
Correct. And there are things that we've looked at in the past, for instance, the roads that are directly against the fence line. Worked with Kern County on those to see what our best course of action. We are doing everything we can to keep our QDs within our fence line.
That's all I have, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you.
A380 return to service flight.
Oh, shoot. I'm sorry about that.
No worries.
Yeah, we I don't know if you guys been paying attention or not. We do have an organization that has purchased 4 of the Airbus A380s. And one of them is supposed to be returning to service here really soon. They're just trying to take care of some final mechanical items, but it is sitting currently out at the Hammerhead. And it has been drawing a lot of attention. As I recall, it was the #1 tracked aircraft when they were doing their test flight last week, wasn't it? And what was it like?
51,066.
Like watching them for flight or flight aware. Flight radar 24.
That's all right.
They're supposed to get me to I guess give an interview for a media release about it, but we are excited because I don't know how many aircraft do we see going to the Boneyard's custody that go back into service. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, just a Part 91 A380 flight is always exciting.
Yeah, I've never seen an A380 go do touch and goes.
That's what I wanted to do.
Yes,
That's why I love them. I think that to fuel it the other day, it took 8 hours to fuel it.
Didn't you say it was like a 5-day endeavor to get it fueled, something like that? Just
It got complicated.
it got complicated.
Because it's been mothballed. I mean, surely that's not normal.
Well, I mean, we don't normally have fuel trucks that are running out to A380s.
Right.
That's awesome.
Okay, so we're up to item 6, director comments on items not on the agenda.
How do we get a ride on the A380?
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you do pull that card.
Okay, if there's no other director comments, we're moving on to item 7, closed session. We've got
Recording stopped.
5 items to cover, and then we'll have a report after that. Thank you for attending.